He thought he'd intimidate me right at the voter check-in table with nothing but a mortgage loan application and his usual threats. But this year, I was the one sitting behind the deputy registrar placard. The photo of the forged signature bearing my name was already in my file along with the tracking number from the county's voter verification system. He didn't know what I'd registered for beforehand, registered as an election volunteer, registered evidence preservation, and registered a legal anchor that would drag his entire network down. When he leaned across the table, reeking of beer and saying, "Sign this, or forget about voting again," I simply pressed send on a data package to the State Attorney General's office. My name is Mara Ellison, and at 34, I've learned that sometimes the best revenge comes wrapped in bureaucratic procedures and timestamp logs. The fluorescent lights of the Riverton Community Center hummed above me as I adjusted my deputy registrar badge for the third time that evening. It was my first shift at the early voting site, a volunteer position I'd pursued with the kind of determination usually reserved for career moves. But this wasn't about civic duty. It was about reclaiming control from the man who'd held my financial life hostage for years. During the day, I worked at Halcyon Metrics, a mid-sized data security firm where I spent 8 hours reviewing compliance logs and flagging anomalies. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd become an expert at spotting fraudulent patterns in data while living under the shadow of Victor Hale's financial manipulations. Victor, my stepfather, the man who'd married my mother when I was 19 and systematically inserted himself into every financial document he could find. The construction company owner who thought a hard hat and a loud voice gave him dominion over everyone in his orbit. "Next voter, please," I called out, my voice steady despite the knot forming in my stomach as I spotted a familiar figure in the line. The Riverton Board of Elections had been thorough in their training. Check ID, verify address, confirm registration status, issue ballot. Simple steps that maintained the integrity of our democratic process. What they hadn't trained me for was handling the man who'd forged my signature on 3 different loan applications over the past decade. I'd spent 2 years rebuilding my credit score after discovering the first forgery, another year fighting off collection agencies, 6 months in therapy learning to set boundaries, and now, here I was, wearing an official badge and sitting behind a table that represented everything Victor despised: rules he couldn't bend, systems he couldn't manipulate, authority he couldn't undermine. The line moved forward, 5 people ahead of him now. My phone buzzed with a notification from the county's voter verification system. Another successful check-in. Each confirmation number was logged, time-stamped, and backed up to 3 different servers. The beautiful redundancy of government systems, everything tracked, everything verified, everything preserved. 3 people ahead. I recognized his swagger before I saw his face clearly. That same aggressive lean forward, shoulders squared like he was preparing for a fight. In his hand, a manila folder that seemed too thick for a simple voting trip. "Mara," my colleague Jennifer whispered from the next station. "You okay? You look pale." "Fine," I managed, fingers hovering over my keyboard. "Just processing a long day." 1 person ahead. Victor's eyes found mine across the short distance. That familiar smirk spread across his weathered face, the one that used to make me sign documents just to end conversations. But tonight was different. Tonight, I was the one with the authority stamp. "Next voter, please." He approached my station with deliberate slowness, dropping the manila folder on my table with a theatrical thud. The scent of beer and cigarettes wafted across the desk. Some things never changed. Well, Mara playing government official. He leaned forward, invading the professional space I'd carefully maintained all evening. Funny thing about conflicts of interest, family members aren't supposed to process each other's voting documents. Ethics violation, they call it. I kept my expression neutral, fingers poised over the keyboard. "May I see your ID, please?" He slid his driver's license across the table, then opened the folder. Inside, I glimpsed a loan application with my name on it, a formal complaint form, and what looked like a petition. My stomach tightened, but my hands remained steady. "See? I've got some business that needs your signature, he continued, voice dropping to that familiar threatening register. And I figure we can handle this like family. You sign these papers. I don't file this complaint about your obvious conflict of interest. Everyone votes. Everyone goes home happy. I scanned his ID, typed his information into the system. The voter verification system pinged back immediately registered. Eligible. No flags. My fingers moved to the notes section, typing quickly. Voter attempting to influence election official, requesting signature on unrelated documents. Verbal coercion attempted. Sir, I need you to verify your current address, I said, rotating the screen toward him. His face reddened. Did you hear what I said? Sign the papers, or forget about voting again, I finished calmly. That would be voter intimidation, which is a federal offense. Your address verification, please. The community center's security camera blinked steadily above us. 2 election observers stood within earshot. Jennifer had her phone out, clearly recording. Every second of this interaction was being documented, preserved, time-stamped. Victor's jaw clenched as he stabbed his finger at the screen. Confirming his address, I processed his ballot authorization, handed him his voting card, and looked him directly in the eye. The United States Postal Service offers notary services for legal documents, I said evenly. This is a polling place. Next voter, please. He grabbed his folder, his license, his voting card, but before walking away, he leaned in one more time. This isn't over. I waited until he'd entered the voting booth before pulling out my phone and opening my secure cloud storage. The photo was already there, a high-resolution scan of my signature from an old rental agreement, next to the signature on his latest loan application. The metadata showed the forgery had been created just 2 days ago. My finger hovered over the send button. One tap would forward everything to the State Attorney General's office, where my earlier complaint was already under review, but timing was everything in data compliance, and in revenge. I pressed send. The system confirmed delivery with a cheerful chime. Case number generated. Investigation initiated. The paper trail that would end Victor Hale's 15-year reign of financial terrorism had officially begun. Next voter, please, I called out, my voice stronger now. The line continued to move. Democracy in action, while somewhere in a voting booth, my stepfather had no idea that his own vote had just triggered his downfall. The next morning, I spread Victor's loan documents across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. Coffee cooled in my mug as I positioned my laptop's forensic software next to the papers, ready to dissect 15 years of financial manipulation down to the pixel level. Working in data compliance had taught me that fraudsters always leave patterns. They get comfortable, lazy, predictable. Victor was no exception. The signature on his latest mortgage refinancing application, the one with my name as cosigner, had the same telltale characteristics I'd seen before: the peculiar lift in the middle of the M, the too perfect spacing between letters, the identical pressure points that suggested digital reproduction rather than natural pen strokes. I pulled up the scan of my rental agreement from 6 years ago, the one I'd signed when I first moved out of Victor's house. Overlaying the signatures in my analysis software confirmed what I'd suspected. The correlation was 94.7%, well above the threshold for mechanical duplication. He'd literally lifted my signature from an old document and pasted it onto his loan application. My phone rang, unknown number, but I recognized the area code: the Riverton County Board of Elections. Ms. Ellison, this is Director Patricia Hawkins. I'm calling about the incident report from last night's early voting session. My pulse quickened. Yes, Director Hawkins. I documented everything according to protocol. You did more than that, she said, her tone unreadable. We've received a formal complaint about you from a Mr. Victor Hale, but more interesting is what our IT security team found when reviewing the logs. I set down my coffee carefully. What did they find? Someone attempted to submit a change of address form for your voter registration yesterday afternoon. The IP address traces back to a business, Hale & Partners Construction. Ring any bells? My laptop screen seemed to blur for a moment. He'd tried to invalidate my voter registration while planning to confront me at the polls. The sheer audacity of it took my breath away. "That's my stepfather's company," I managed. I had no idea he'd... The attempt was flagged and blocked by our fraud prevention system. Director Hawkins continued. "But I need you to come to our office today to file a formal report and freeze your voter record. Can you make it by noon?" "I'll be there in an hour." After hanging up, I immediately called my bank. The representative confirmed what I'd feared: someone had requested a credit increase on a joint account I'd forgotten existed. One Victor had insisted on opening for emergencies years ago. The signature on the request, another digital copy of mine. I documented everything: screenshots, timestamps, IP addresses, account numbers. My external hard drive hummed as I backed up each piece of evidence in triplicate. In data security, we had a saying: 1 copy is none, 2 is 1, 3 is bare minimum. By 11 a.m., I was sitting in the cramped office of the Riverton County Board of Elections, watching Director Hawkins review my voter file on her screen. Her expression grew increasingly grim as she scrolled through the attempted modifications. "He didn't just try to change your address," she said slowly. "There are 4 separate attempts here, different email addresses, different IP locations, but all linking back to either his company or properties owned by his business partners. This is systematic voter suppression. Can you freeze my record?" "Already done, but Ms. Ellison, this goes beyond just protecting your registration. What he attempted is a felony under state law, combined with the intimidation attempt last night." She pulled out a formal complaint form. "I strongly encourage you to file charges." As I filled out the paperwork, my mind raced through the implications. Victor had built his construction empire on handshake deals and intimidation, always operating just inside the law's gray areas. But voter fraud. That was federal territory. That was the kind of mistake that brought down entire networks. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your mail. B." Director Hawkins noticed my expression. "Everything okay?" "He's escalating," I said, showing her the message. "Classic intimidation pattern. He knows I'm here." She picked up her desk phone immediately. "I'm calling our liaison at the Attorney General's office. This needs to be handled at the state level." While she made the call, I opened my laptop and connected to my home security system. The camera showed a certified letter wedged in my mailbox, no doubt some legal threat designed to make me back down. But Victor had made a crucial error. Every interaction, every threat, every forged document was now part of an official investigation. Director Hawkins hung up and turned back to me. "They want everything you have, every document, every timestamp, every piece of evidence. Can you compile it?" I pulled out my external drive. "I've been preparing for this moment for 2 years. Everything's here categorized, verified, and chain of custody documented." She smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. "Ms. Ellison, I think you're about to teach Mr. Hale a very expensive lesson about the difference between construction fraud and election fraud. One might get you fined, the other gets you federal prison time." As I left the building, I felt the weight of what I'd set in motion. But I also felt something else: the solid ground of legal protection beneath my feet. Victor had spent years keeping me off balance with financial threats and forged signatures. Now, I was the one with the timestamps, the evidence trail, and most importantly, the backing of the United States government. My phone rang again. This time, I recognized the number: my credit union's fraud department. Another piece of Victor's network beginning to unravel. I answered with a smile. "Yes, I'd like to report identity theft. I have case numbers from both the County Board of Elections and the State Attorney General's office. Where should I send the evidence?" The coffee shop on 3rd Street had become my unofficial war room. Ivy Park sat across from me, her legal pad already filled with notes as she reviewed the documents I'd compiled. We'd met 2 years ago at a compliance conference she'd been presenting on workplace ethics violations, and I'd been taking notes on every legal protection I could find. "Mara, this is..." She set down the forged loan application, shaking her head. "This is a prosecutor's dream. He didn't just commit fraud. He documented his entire process. Look at these metadata timestamps. I pulled up the analysis on my laptop. Every forged signature was created between 2:00 and 4:00 p.m. on weekdays, business hours at Hale and Partners Construction. He was literally doing this from his office computer. And the voter registration tampering. Ivy's eyes sharpened. That transforms this from civil to criminal. The federal government doesn't take election interference lightly, especially not now. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up to see Evan Ward entering with his own folder of documents. My neighbor and fellow election volunteer had become an unexpected ally when he'd witnessed Victor's confrontation at the polls. "Sorry I'm late," Evan said, sliding into the booth beside Ivy. "I was at the Board of Elections filing my witness statement. Director Hawkins says 3 other poll workers have come forward with similar stories about Victor trying to manipulate voter records." Ivy immediately perked up. "Other victims?" "Employees at his construction company," Evan explained. "Apparently, he's been helping them with voter registration for years, always insisted on handling the paperwork himself." I felt sick. "He's been doing this to other people." "That's racketeering," Ivy said quietly. "If he's been systematically tampering with voter registrations of his employees..." She pulled out her phone. "I need to call my colleague at the U.S. Attorney's Office. This just became a much bigger case." While Ivy stepped outside to make her call, Evan leaned forward. "Mara, there's something else. My ex-wife works at First National Bank. She can't give me details, but she mentioned they've opened an investigation into unusual patterns in Hale and Partners' business accounts, signatures that don't match, suspicious transfers." I thought about all the loans Victor had taken out over the years, all the documents he'd pressured people to sign. He's been running his whole business on forged signatures. That's what it looks like. And once the feds start pulling that thread... Evan shook his head. "Your voter fraud report might have just triggered the investigation that brings down his entire operation." Ivy returned, her expression serious but satisfied. "My colleague is very interested. They want to coordinate with the State Attorney General's office. Mara, they're asking if you'd be willing to be the primary complainant in a federal case." "What does that mean?" "It means you'd be the face of this investigation. Your evidence would be the cornerstone. But it also means Victor will know you're the one who brought him down." I thought about all the years of intimidation, the ruined credit, the constant anxiety about what financial disaster he'd create next. He already knows. That's why he's escalating. Ivy nodded. "Then we need to establish what my colleague calls a legal anchor. We file reports with every relevant agency simultaneously: FBI, IRS, State Attorney General, County Prosecutor. We create so many investigations that he can't possibly shut them all down." "IRS?" I asked. "If he's been forging signatures on loans, he's been lying about his income, and if he's been claiming other people's addresses for voter registration..." She smiled grimly. "Tax fraud is how they got Al Capone." Evan pulled out his phone. "I've got the contact information for the other employees who filed complaints. With your permission, I'd like to connect them with Ivy." "Class action potential," Ivy murmured, making notes. "Mara, we need to document your damages, lost wages from dealing with this, therapy costs, credit repair expenses, everything." I opened a spreadsheet I'd been maintaining for 2 years. "I have receipts for everything: therapy sessions, legal consultations, time off work to deal with creditors. It totals just over $47,000. Make that $147,000 with punitive damages," Ivy corrected. "Courts don't look kindly on systematic identity theft." My phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line made my blood run cold. "Notice of legal action. Hale and Partners Construction versus Mara Ellison." Ivy saw my expression and held out her hand. I passed her the phone. "He's suing you for defamation," she read. "Claims you're spreading false allegations that are damaging his business reputation." She actually laughed. "He just made a crucial mistake. Discovery goes both ways. Now we can legally demand every document from his business." "Is that good?" "Mara, He just handed us the keys to his kingdom. Every forged document, every falsified loan, every tampered voter registration, it all becomes evidence. She started typing rapidly on her phone. I'm filing our countersuit tomorrow. Identity theft, financial fraud, voter intimidation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Evan raised his coffee cup. To legal anchors and paper trails. Ivy clinked her cup against his. To federal investigations and discovery procedures. I raised my own cup, thinking about the terrified young woman who'd signed whatever Victor put in front of her just to keep the peace. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who understood that documentation was power and timestamps were weapons. To justice, I said quietly, properly documented and triple backed up. As we finished our coffee and planned our next moves, I felt the shift in momentum. Victor had built his empire on intimidation and forged signatures, but I had something more powerful, a meticulous paper trail and a growing team of allies who understood that sometimes the best revenge comes with federal case numbers and chain of custody forms. My phone buzzed again. Director Hawkins from the Board of Elections. State Attorney General wants to meet Monday. Bring everything. I smiled. Victor thought he was burying me in legal threats. Instead, he just lit a fuse that led directly to his own demolition. The anonymous letters started arriving on Tuesday. Plain white envelopes, no return address, postmarked from different locations around Riverton. The first one was almost laughable in its crudeness. Stop making trouble or face the consequences. But by the fourth letter, the tone had shifted to something darker, more specific. References to my daily routine, my car's license plate, the coffee shop where I met with Ivy. Victor's escalation playbook was as predictable as his forged signatures. I photographed each letter, documented the postmarks, and filed them in clear protective sleeves with evidence tags. My dining room had transformed into a makeshift legal command center, with color-coded folders for each agency's investigation. The FBI had assigned a case number. The IRS had opened an audit. The State Attorney General's office had scheduled depositions. Victor's intimidation campaign was now federal evidence. My phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. Someone had tagged me in a post on the Riverton Community Board page. My stomach dropped as I read. Warning. Mara Ellison, volunteer at early voting, has been denying elderly citizens their right to vote. She turned away my uncle, 82 years old, because of paperwork issues. This is discrimination. Share if you think our seniors deserve better. The post already had 43 shares. The comments section was filling with outrage from people who'd never met me but were happy to pile on. Classic Victor, he couldn't attack me legally, so he'd weaponize social media instead. Ivy called within minutes. I saw the post. Don't respond. People are believing it. My coworkers might see this. Screenshot everything, every comment, every share, every person connected to Victor's business who's spreading it. This is witness tampering through social media. He's trying to discredit you before you testify. I started documenting, but the nightmare was expanding. 3 different Riverton community Facebook groups now had similar posts. A Nextdoor thread claimed I was known for causing problems. Someone had even created a Change.org petition, remove Mara Ellison from voter registration duties. Then my work email chimed, my supervisor at Halcyon Metrics. Mara, we need to discuss some concerning social media posts. Please see me first thing tomorrow. My hands shook as I forwarded the email to Ivy. Victor had found my weakness, my reputation, my job, my livelihood. The very things I'd spent years rebuilding after his financial sabotage. But I wasn't the same person who'd cowered under his threats 5 years ago. I opened my evidence folders and began connecting dots with the methodical precision that data compliance had taught me. The Facebook accounts spreading the lies, I cross-referenced them with Hale and Partners employee directory. 7 matches. The timing of the posts, all within a 2-hour window, suggesting coordination. The IP addresses visible in the metadata of screenshots sent by supporters 3 traced back to Victor's office building. My doorbell rang at 9 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw a process server. Mara Ellison, you're being served. The stack of papers was thick. Victor wasn't just suing for defamation anymore. He'd added harassment, interference with business operations, and somehow, elder abuse based on the fictional Facebook claims. The lawsuit sought $500,000 in damages. I called Ivy immediately. "He's trying to bury me in paper." "Let him," she said calmly. "Every document he files creates more evidence of his pattern of intimidation. Speaking of which, check your email. The U.S. Attorney's Office just sent something interesting." I opened the attachment, a notice of expanded investigation. 3 more Hale & Partners employees had come forward with evidence of voter registration tampering and signature forgery. The investigation now included potential violations of the Voting Rights Act. "Victor doesn't know about this yet," Ivy explained, "but his lawyer will find out during discovery. Imagine his face when he realizes his intimidation campaign triggered a federal voting rights investigation." My phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You stupid little—" Victor's voice was slurred. Angry, I hit record immediately. "This call is being recorded. Victor." "I don't give a damn." "You think you're smart. I built this company from nothing. I know judges, politicians, people who matter. You're nobody. A data entry clerk playing detective." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. By the time I'm done, you won't be able to get a job cleaning toilets in this town. Every employer will know you're a troublemaker. Every landlord will know you're a deadbeat. I'll make sure your credit is so destroyed. Like you destroyed it 5 years ago with forged loans." Silence. Then, "You can't prove anything." "The FBI disagrees. So does the IRS. And the state attorney general. Oh, and the U.S. Attorney's Office investigating voter suppression." The line went dead. I saved the recording, backed it up to 3 cloud services, and emailed it to Ivy with the subject line, "Evidence of witness intimidation and threat of economic retaliation." Within an hour, Ivy had filed an emergency motion for a restraining order. The recording, combined with the social media campaign and anonymous letters, painted a clear picture of escalating harassment. But the universe wasn't done with Tuesday's chaos. At 11:47 p.m., I received an alert from my credit monitoring service. Someone had applied for a commercial truck loan using my Social Security number, the amount $75,000. The business listed a shell company I'd never heard of, but whose registered address matched one of Victor's construction sites. I laughed, actually laughed. In his desperation to intimidate me, Victor had just committed wire fraud across state lines. That moved him from state charges to federal territory, from courthouse to FBI field office, from fines to potential decades in prison. I opened my laptop and began documenting this new evidence with the calm efficiency of someone who'd found their power. Each screenshot, each timestamp, each piece of metadata was another nail in the coffin Victor was building for himself. My phone buzzed with a text from Evan. "Saw the social media posts. Already got 5 poll workers writing witness statements about your professionalism. We've got your back." Another from Director Hawkins. "The board stands behind you completely. That elderly man's story is provably false. We have video of every voter interaction." And finally, Ivy. "Emergency injunction granted. He comes within 500 feet of you or contacts you again. He goes to jail. Also, the truck loan triggered a federal fraud alert. The FBI wants to move up their interview schedule." I sat back in my chair, surrounded by evidence folders and legal documents, and realized something had shifted. Victor's empire wasn't just cracking, it was crumbling. And he'd done it to himself. One forged signature, one threat, one desperate intimidation attempt at a time. The anonymous letters had been meant to frighten me. The social media campaign was designed to isolate me. The lawsuits were supposed to bankrupt me. Instead, they'd become evidence in a federal case that would likely end with Victor in handcuffs. I picked up my phone and scrolled through the supportive messages from colleagues, neighbors, and fellow poll workers. Victor had tried to destroy my reputation. Instead, he'd revealed his own true nature to everyone watching. Tomorrow would bring more chaos, more threats, more desperate moves from a man watching his world collapse. But tonight, I filed my evidence, backed up my data, and slept soundly knowing that sometimes the best revenge isn't just served cold, it's served with federal case numbers and a meticulous chain of custody. The morning of peak early voting arrived with an email that changed everything. The State Attorney General's office had approved my enrollment in the Witness Registrar Program, a joint county-state initiative designed to document election integrity violations in real time. My badge would look the same, but every interaction at my station would be legally monitored and preserved as potential evidence. This was why I'd registered, not just to volunteer, but to become a protected witness in my own case. Ivy had called it brilliant. You'll be a state-sanctioned observer of your own harassment. Every word Victor says, every threat he makes, it becomes part of an official election monitoring record. I arrived at the community center 2 hours early, meeting with Director Hawkins and the state compliance officer who would oversee the program. They equipped me with a discreet recording system and a direct hotline to law enforcement. If he shows up, the compliance officer explained, you follow standard procedure, but everything will be captured under election monitoring protocols. That makes any interference a direct attack on the electoral process itself. By 7 a.m., the line of voters stretched around the building. I took my position at the provisional ballot station a deliberate choice. Provisional ballots required extra documentation, more interaction, more opportunity for Victor to expose himself if he took the bait. Jennifer, my colleague from the first night, squeezed my shoulder. We all know what's happening. Every poll worker here has your back. The morning passed smoothly. Elderly couples, young professionals, families with children in tow, democracy in action. I processed each voter with careful attention, my new status as a witness registrar making me hyper-aware of every detail. At 11:47 a.m., I saw him. Victor approached with calculated swagger, but something was different. He carried a leather portfolio and wore his best suit, the one he saved for court appearances and bank meetings. He'd brought backup two men I recognized from his construction company's management team. My fingers found the emergency button under my desk as he reached my station. Ms. Ellison, he said formally, loud enough for others to hear. I'm here to withdraw my complaint against you. I kept my expression neutral. I'll need to see your identification. Mr. Hale. He slid his license across with exaggerated cooperation. Of course, I want everything properly documented. See, I've realized we can resolve this as a family matter. Warning bells rang in my mind. This rehearsed reasonableness was more dangerous than his threats. I scanned his ID, noting in the system, voter requesting interaction with specific poll worker, witness registrar protocols active. In fact, Victor continued, pulling papers from his portfolio, I have here a mutual release form. You drop your false allegations. I drop my lawsuit. Everyone moves on. All you need to do is sign. The compliance officer's voice crackled through my earpiece. Document visible. Maintain standard procedure. Sir, this is a polling place. I cannot conduct personal business while serving as an election official. But you can fix this. His voice hardened slightly. Sign the release, and I'll even help correct your voter registration issues. Make sure your ballot counts. There it was. The implication that my vote might not count. Voter intimidation. Wrapped in false concern. Evan appeared at the edge of my peripheral vision, his phone clearly recording. 2 state observers had moved closer. The trap was set. Mr. Hale, are you suggesting my voter registration has issues? Well, there's been some confusion about addresses, but I have a friend at the county who can ensure everything's corrected. Just need your signature here. I leaned forward slightly. To clarify, you're offering to influence my voter registration status in exchange for my signature on this document. His face flushed. One of his companions tugged at his sleeve, recognizing the trap too late. I'm trying to help you. Victor's voice rose. Sign the damn paper or what? I asked calmly. He pulled out another document, what looked like a power of attorney form with my name already filled in. Or I file this? See, I have your signature from old documents, legal signatures. I can prove you gave me authority to handle your affairs. My heart raced. but my voice remained steady. Sir, are you showing me a document with what you claim is my signature? Suggesting you'll file it if I don't sign this release? Damn right I am. Your signature, your authority, unless you want to sign this instead and make it all go away. The compliance officer's voice was urgent now. Multiple law enforcement units responding. Maintain position. I reached for my official stamp. Mr. Hale, I need to document this interaction. I stamped a blank incident report, making sure the sound carried. You're presenting documents you claim contain my signature and threatening to file them unless I sign a different document. Is that correct? His lawyers must have prepped him for everything except official documentation. The stamp sound triggered something. His face went pale as he realized every word was being recorded under election monitoring protocols. This is entrapment, he snarled. This is a polling place, I corrected. You approached my station. You presented documents. You made statements about influencing voter registration, all witnessed and documented according to state election monitoring standards. 2 uniformed officers entered through the main doors, followed by someone in an FBI windbreaker. The state observers had closed in, creating a subtle perimeter. Victor grabbed his documents, but Director Hawkins appeared beside him. Sir, those documents were presented as evidence of voter intimidation. They'll need to be preserved. You can't. Actually, the FBI agent interrupted, displaying credentials. We can. Mr. Hale, you're under federal investigation for voter suppression, identity theft, and wire fraud. Any documents you've brought today are now evidence. Victor's companions backed away as photographers, clearly tipped off by someone, began snapping pictures through the windows. Tomorrow's headlines were writing themselves, Construction Executive Arrested at Polling Place for Voter Intimidation. Mara, Victor said desperately as an officer approached with handcuffs. Tell them this is a misunderstanding. Family dispute. I looked him directly in the eye. Mr. Hale, you've presented potentially forged documents at an official polling place while attempting to influence voter registration. As a state witness registrar, I'm obligated to report all such incidents. The officer read Victor his rights as photographers captured every moment. His empire, built on forged signatures and intimidation, was crumbling on the most public stage possible, a polling place during peak voting hours. As they led him away, the FBI agent approached my station. Ms. Ellison, we'll need your full statement. The documents he showed, they match forgeries we found in multiple fraud cases. Your registration as a witness registrar means every word he said is admissible as evidence of election interference. I handed over my incident report, complete with timestamps and official stamps. Everything is documented according to protocol. The agent smiled grimly. He walked right into it, didn't he? Thought he could intimidate you into signing away your rights at your own polling station. As order returned to the community center and voters resumed their democratic duty, I felt the weight of what had just happened. Victor had spent years forging my signature. Today, at a table surrounded by the actual signatures of citizens exercising their rights, his own words had signed his arrest warrant. The Witness Registrar program had worked exactly as designed. By registering myself as both victim and official observer, I'd created a perfect legal trap. Victor's ego had done the rest. Next voter, please, I called out, my voice steady and clear. Democracy didn't stop for failed intimidation attempts, and neither did I. The provisional ballot station had never seen so much official attention. 2 hours after Victor's arrest, my table was surrounded by law enforcement and election officials documenting every detail of the confrontation. The FBI agent, who introduced herself as Special Agent Martinez, worked with surgical precision. The device Mr. Hale presented, she said, pointing to the evidence bag containing his portfolio, contained 17 documents with variations of your signature. Our forensics team is running analysis now, but preliminary results show digital manipulation dating back 8 years. Director Hawkins stood nearby, fielding calls from state officials. The community center continued to process voters, but everyone gave my station a wide berth, as if crime scene tape existed in their minds. Ms. Ellison, Agent Martinez continued. The power of attorney form he showed you, we found similar documents filed in 3 different counties, all with forged signatures, all attempting to grant him control over financial assets. I thought of all the times I'd wondered why bank statements seemed off, why credit inquiries appeared without my knowledge. He's been doing this for years. The pattern suggests systematic fraud, but today's incident, she gestured to the recording equipment still documenting everything. This transforms it from financial crimes to election interference. That's why the assistant U.S. attorney wants to fast-track this case. A commotion near the entrance drew our attention. Victor's lawyer, Maxwell Sterling, approached with the determined stride of someone billing by the hour. Behind him, a young woman carried boxes of what looked like legal files. "I need to speak with Ms. Ellison," Sterling announced. Agent Martinez stepped forward. "Any communication needs to go through official channels. My client wants to make a deal." Sterling's desperation showed through his professional veneer. "Full restitution, public apology, withdrawal of all claims." "Your client," I said clearly, ensuring the recording captured every word, "just attempted to coerce a state witness registrar at an official polling location. He presented forged documents and threatened voter manipulation. There's no deal to make." Sterling's face flushed. "Those documents were legitimate business records." "Then you won't mind the FBI forensics team examining them," Agent Martinez interrupted, "along with the metadata showing when and where they were created." The lawyer turned to me, dropping his professional mask. "You don't understand what you've done. Victor Hale employs 200 people. His construction projects, built on forged permits," I suggested, "financed with fraudulent loans. I work in data compliance. Mr. Sterling, I understand exactly what I've done." Director Hawkins stepped forward. "Mr. Sterling, you're disrupting an active polling location. Unless you're here to vote, I need you to leave." As security escorted the lawyer out, Agent Martinez pulled me aside. "His desperation tells us something. Our financial crimes unit just called 3 banks have frozen Hale and Partners accounts pending investigation. Your evidence triggered a cascade. What happens now?" "Now we document everything. The state observers recorded the entire interaction. Your witness registrar status means every word is protected testimony. But I need you to understand this is just the beginning." She was right. My phone had been buzzing constantly with messages from reporters, former employees of Victor's company, and even family members I hadn't heard from in years. The arrest at a polling place had turned a financial fraud case into national news. Evan approached with a tablet showing local news coverage. "You need to see this." The headline read, "Construction Executive Arrested for Election Interference." But it was the subtitle that caught my attention. "Investigation Reveals Years-Long Pattern of Identity Theft and Voter Suppression." "They're connecting dots," Evan explained. "Former employees are coming forward. Apparently, Victor's been helping with voter registration for years, always insisting on handling the paperwork himself." Agent Martinez's phone rang. She listened, her expression darkening. "Mr. Hale just made bail. His lawyers filed emergency motions to suppress the recordings." "Can they do that?" "They can try, but witness registrar recordings are protected under state election law. He'd have better luck suppressing gravity." A new message appeared on my phone from a number I recognized as Victor's personal cell. "This isn't over." I showed it to Agent Martinez immediately. She photographed it and made a call. "He just violated the conditions of his bail. No contact order includes digital communication." The irony wasn't lost on me. Victor had spent years forging my signature on paper documents. Now, a simple text message authenticated by cellular towers and timestamp data would send him back to jail. "Ms. Ellison," Director Hawkins said, returning from another call. "The state wants to expand the witness registrar program based on today's events. Your documentation protocols are being studied as a model." I looked around the community center at the voters exercising their rights, the poll workers maintaining democracy's infrastructure, the law enforcement protecting the process. Victor had thought he could intimidate me at my weakest point. Instead, He'd attacked me where I was strongest, surrounded by witnesses, protected by law, and armed with meticulous documentation. "There's one more thing," Agent Martinez said quietly. "The U.S. Attorney's Office found something in the seized documents, business contracts with forged signatures from city officials, bids that were approved based on falsified documents. This isn't just fraud, it's public corruption." My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ivy. "Emergency injunction granted. All Hale and Partners assets frozen pending investigation. Also, check your email, the IRS just joined the party." I thought about the scared young woman who'd signed whatever Victor demanded just to avoid confrontation. She'd evolved into someone who understood that proper documentation wasn't just protection, it was power. And today, at a simple folding table in a community center, that power had brought down an empire built on lies. "Next voter, please," I called out, returning to my station. The investigation would continue. The legal proceedings would stretch for months. But right now, democracy needed processing. Agent Martinez placed a business card on my table. "We'll need you to come to the federal building Monday morning. Bring everything." I nodded, already mentally organizing my evidence files. Victor thought he'd destroyed me with paper. Instead, he'd taught me that with the right documentation, paper could be the strongest weapon of all. The afternoon sun slanted through the community center windows as voters continued their civic duty, unaware they were walking through a crime scene that had just changed the course of multiple lives. And at the center of it all, I sat at my provisional ballot station, stamping documents and protecting democracy one properly verified signature at a time. The County Board of Elections meeting room had been transformed into a public hearing venue. Extra chairs lined the walls, news cameras occupied the back corners, and a projection screen dominated the front wall. 3 weeks after Victor's arrest at the polling station, the board had called this emergency session to address systemic voter registration fraud and election integrity concerns. I sat in the front row between Ivy and Agent Martinez, my laptop bag containing 3 backup drives of evidence. Behind us, the gallery buzzed with former Hale and Partners employees, journalists, and concerned citizens who'd been following the case. "This hearing will come to order," announced Chairwoman Rebecca Santos. "We're here to examine evidence of systematic voter suppression and identity fraud that has compromised our electoral process." Ivy stood first, her presentation remote in hand. "Board members, what we're about to show you isn't just financial fraud, it's an attack on democracy itself." The first slide appeared a timeline stretching back 12 years. Each point marked a forged signature, a fraudulent voter registration change, or a manipulated document. The visual impact was staggering, dozens of red marks clustering around election years. "This is the data trail of Victor Hale's operations," Ivy explained. "Using Ms. Ellison's forensic analysis, we've identified 93 instances of signature forgery across 17 victims." I watched the board members' faces change as Ivy clicked through the evidence. Voter registration forms with lifted signatures, address changes submitted without citizens' knowledge, financial documents used to establish false residencies. "Ms. Ellison," Chairwoman Santos addressed me directly, "can you explain your analysis methodology?" I stood, my voice steady despite the cameras. "Every digital signature has unique characteristics, pressure points, timing, pixel patterns. Using standard forensic software, I compared known authentic signatures with suspected forgeries. The screen showed my analysis overlapping signatures with correlation percentages, metadata timestamps, IP addresses. In every case, the forgeries originated from computers linked to Hale and Partners construction." "Objection!" A voice from the gallery interrupted. Maxwell Sterling had arrived, looking haggard. "This is a public lynching based on circumstantial—" "Mr. Sterling," Chairwoman Santos cut him off. "You're not recognized to speak. Security, please ensure order." Evan took the witness chair next, his testimony clear and damaging. "I witnessed Mr. Hale attempt to coerce Ms. Ellison at the provisional ballot station. He explicitly offered to fix her voter registration in exchange for her signature on legal documents. And this was recorded, board member James Wright asked. Under the witness registrar program, Evan confirmed. Every word, every gesture, every document he presented. The presentation continued with testimony from 3 former Hale and Partners employees. Each told similar stories, Victor helping with voter registration, insisting on handling the paperwork, addresses mysteriously changing before elections. Then came the financial evidence. A representative from First National Bank presented their findings: systematic loan fraud using forged signatures, false statements, manufactured documents. The numbers were staggering: over $4 million in fraudulent loans over 8 years. The scope suggests organized crime, the bank representative stated. This wasn't opportunistic fraud. This was a system. Agent Martinez took the floor next. The FBI has uncovered what we call a fraud ecosystem: voter suppression to control local elections, forged signatures to secure construction contracts, identity theft to finance operations, all interconnected. The screen showed a complex web of connections: shell companies, false addresses, manipulated contracts. At the center, like a spider in its web, sat Victor Hale's name. "Where is Mr. Hale now?" Chairwoman Santos asked. "Under federal custody," Agent Martinez replied. "He violated bail conditions by attempting to contact Miss Ellison. He's been denied bail pending trial." A murmur rippled through the gallery. Sterling stood again. "My client maintains his innocence." "Your client," Ivy interjected, standing, "submitted this power of attorney to 3 banks last week." The screen showed a document with my forged signature, dated after Victor's arrest. "He tried to access Ms. Ellison's accounts while in custody." The room erupted. Chairwoman Santos gavelled for order as photographers captured Sterling's stunned expression. Even Victor's own lawyer hadn't known about this latest forgery. "Furthermore," Ivy continued, "we have evidence of ongoing conspiracy. 2 Hale and Partners employees were caught attempting to alter voter registration records yesterday. The corruption continues even with Mr. Hale incarcerated." Board member Patricia Alvarez leaned forward. "Ms. Ellison, what resolution are you seeking?" I stood, thinking of all the people Victor had silenced over the years. Complete transparency, every forged document publicized, every victim notified, every corrupted voter registration corrected, and a system to prevent this from happening again. "We're prepared to offer more," Agent Martinez added. "The U.S. Attorney's Office is proposing federal monitoring of county voter registration systems, regular audits, signature verification upgrades, making Riverton a model for election integrity." The board members conferred quietly before Chairwoman Santos spoke. "We're prepared to vote on immediate measures, all in favor of referring the complete case file to federal prosecution." 5 hands raised, unanimous. All in favor of implementing mandatory signature verification systems and federal monitoring. Again unanimous. All in favor of establishing a victim restitution fund from seized Hale and Partners assets. Unanimous. And finally, Chairwoman Santos looked directly at me. All in favor of commending Ms. Mara Ellison for her courage in exposing this corruption and establishing her as a consultant for our new integrity protocols. As 5 hands raised again, the gallery erupted in applause. I felt tears prick my eyes, not of sadness, but of vindication. Every forged signature, every threat, every attempt to silence me had led to this moment. Sterling fled the room as reporters shouted questions. On the screen, the final slide showed the scope of impact: 93 victims identified, 4 million in fraud exposed, 17 employees complicit, and 1 man's empire completely destroyed. This board hereby transfers all evidence to federal authorities, Chairwoman Santos announced. We also authorize the creation of the Riverton Election Integrity Task Force, with Ms. Ellison as its first civilian advisor. As the hearing concluded, people approached to share their stories. Former employees who'd suspected something wrong, citizens whose registrations had been mysteriously changed, business owners who'd lost bids to forged contracts. "You gave us our voices back," an elderly woman said, gripping my hand. He told me I wasn't registered anymore, made me think I was confused, but you proved I wasn't crazy. Agent Martinez appeared at my elbow. The Attorney General wants to meet you tomorrow. They're building a RICO case, racketeering, conspiracy, the whole package. Victor's looking at 25 to life. I thought about the man who'd terrorized me for years with nothing more than a pen and intimidation. Now that same pen, or rather, its digital ghost would sign his prison sentence. As I gathered my evidence files, Ivy smiled. You know what the beautiful irony is? He taught you to fear signatures. Instead, you became an expert who used signatures to destroy him. Outside, reporters waited with questions, cameras, microphones, but I paused at the door. Looking back at the meeting room, where democracy had won a small but significant victory. Victor had tried to corrupt the system from within. Instead, he'd triggered an immune response that would protect it for years to come. Ms. Ellison, a reporter called out, how does it feel to bring down a millionaire? I thought for a moment. I didn't bring him down. His own signatures did. I just showed everyone what they really meant. The federal courthouse steps were slick with morning rain as I arrived for the sentencing. 6 months had passed since the Board of Elections hearing. 6 months of depositions, evidence reviews, and watching Victor's empire crumble one forged document at a time. Inside, Courtroom 4B was packed. Former employees, fraud victims, reporters, and federal agents filled every seat. I took my place in the front row, my testimony complete, my evidence submitted. Today was about justice being officially served. Victor entered in handcuffs, his expensive suit replaced by federal detention garb. The man who'd once swaggered through life looked diminished, gray, defeated. He avoided eye contact with everyone, especially me. United States versus Victor Hale, the clerk announced, the Honorable Judge Patricia Newcomb presiding. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, Mr. Hale has been found guilty on 47 counts, including racketeering, wire fraud, identity theft, voter suppression, and conspiracy to commit election fraud. The government recommends the maximum sentence. Judge Newcomb reviewed the papers before her. Mr. Hale, you've been convicted of systematically undermining two fundamental pillars of our society, financial trust and electoral integrity. Your actions weren't momentary lapses but a calculated campaign spanning over a decade. She turned to address the gallery. The victim impact statements paint a picture of lives disrupted, credit destroyed, voices silenced. Ms. Ellison's forensic analysis revealed 93 victims, though we suspect there are more. Does the defense wish to make a statement? The judge asked. Sterling stood, looking as defeated as his client. My client maintains that these were business decisions made in complicated circumstances. Forging signatures is not a business decision, Judge Newcomb interrupted. Suppressing votes is not a business strategy, Mr. Hale. Do you wish to address the court? Victor stood slowly. For a moment, I thought he might apologize. Instead, he turned to glare at me. She destroyed everything I built. No, Judge Newcomb corrected sharply. You destroyed what you built by building it on fraud. Ms. Ellison simply revealed the truth. That's not destruction, that's justice. She continued. The court sentences Victor Hale to 25 years federal imprisonment, followed by 10 years supervised release. All assets of Hale and Partners Construction are to be liquidated for victim restitution. Mr. Hale is permanently barred from serving as an officer of any corporation and prohibited from accessing any polling location for life. The gavel fell with finality. As marshals led Victor away, he passed close to my row. You think you won? He hissed. I know I did, I replied calmly. Every time someone votes without fear, every time a signature means what it should, every time the system works, I win. Outside the courthouse, the rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through clouds as reporters gathered for statements. Agent Martinez announced that the FBI was using the Hale case as a training model for financial fraud detection. The IRS had recovered millions in tax evasion. 3 other states had opened investigations based on our evidence patterns. Ms. Ellison? A reporter asked. What's next for you? I'm returning to my job at Halcyon Metrics, I said. But I'm also consulting with the Election Integrity Task Force, helping other counties identify and prevent similar fraud. Ivy stepped forward. We're also pursuing civil suits on behalf of all 93 victims. Mr. Hale may be going to prison, but the financial restoration continues. As the crowd dispersed, Evan joined me on the courthouse steps. How does it feel? I thought about the journey from a terrified young woman signing whatever was demanded to a forensic analyst whose testimony brought down a criminal empire. Like I finally own my own signature. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd first analyzed Victor's forgeries. My laptop showed the victim restitution website we'd created, where people could check if their signatures had been compromised. Already, thousands had visited. My phone buzzed with a message from Director Hawkins. The Witness Registrar program is going national. Your protocols are being adopted by 12 states. You've changed how we protect democracy. I smiled, remembering that first night at the polling station when Victor thought he could intimidate me with a folder of forged papers. He'd spent years weaponizing signatures. In the end, teaching me to fear them had been his greatest mistake. Fear had become expertise. Expertise had become evidence. Evidence had become justice. The local news ran the story at 10. Construction mogul sentenced to 25 years for voter fraud conspiracy. They showed footage of Victor being led away, of the courthouse steps, of the dozens of victims finally getting closure. But the image that struck me most was the simple polling station table where it all started, where democracy's quiet defenders sit with their stamps and protocols, protecting the sacred right to vote one signature at a time. My name is Mara Ellison. I survived financial abuse, identity theft, and systematic intimidation. I fought back with spreadsheets and timestamps, with forensic analysis and federal law, and I won not just for myself, but for everyone whose voice had been silenced by a forged signature. Tomorrow, I'll return to my data compliance job, reviewing logs and flagging anomalies. But I'll also know that sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't dramatic or violent. Sometimes it's as simple as refusing to sign your name on a lie and having the patience to document the truth until justice has no choice but to listen. The man who beat me at the voter table thought he knew power, but he didn't know who had registered me as a witness registrar. He didn't know that every signature he'd forged had become a breadcrumb leading federal agents to his door. Most importantly, he didn't know that the woman he'd tried to silence had learned to speak in the language he'd taught her, the language of documents, signatures, and paper trails, and in that language, I had written his ending. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect and discuss your thoughts on Mara's journey. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. And if you really want to help more people discover this tale of justice and empowerment, please hit the hype button to boost this video's reach. Your support means everything.